Hey MVPs, Rico Knows here. Going to talk to you guys about a futures bet. If you aren't aware, I'm breaking down teams and I'm doing futures bets. Go to Patreon, go to YouTube, check the playlist, 2024 college football futures bets. And then this is about win totals. So you got to get this bet in before the season starts, and then you get paid out at the end of the year. So this bet itself is about the win total for Charlotte. They have met 3.5 wins, over, under. You see it here. They expect them to get the over. That's why it's a minus 142. If you're getting the under, it's plus money at plus 116. But let's go look at Charlotte and how they did last year. So firstly, what you need to know about Charlotte is they had about 30 to 40 transfers last year. And I talked about them at length, and I thought the transfers would make a huge difference. It did. I mean, they lost a number of games in 2022. How'd they look in 2022? Let me do this. Let me go back to 2022 real quick. Interesting. 3-9. Same record. Same record, but they were getting blown out 59-7, right? They were getting blown out 56-20. Again, 56-21. They were giving up 40, 50 points a game. It was insane. They managed to beat Georgia State 2 years ago, beat Rice, blew them out, and then beat La Tech at the end of the season. Okay, so they got 3 wins there. So let's go back and look at 2023. You get a new head coach in Biff Poggi. Biff Poggi brings in all these guys. He's a former head coach at St. Francis, which is a powerhouse in high school football. And he brought all his St. Francis guys with him. Everybody from the Maryland area, the DMV area, DeMatha Catholic, all that stuff. They brought in all these transfers. And it was pretty exciting when you looked at it on paper. But having it come together was another story. It reminded me of my, and this is a true story, my father's first year of coaching. My dad's first year coaching, we had this team that was astronomical. We must have had 3 or 4 NFL players on it. It was a youth football team. And we had no rules for these guys. We were just going to go out and outscore everybody. And we ended up losing in the playoffs. And we had unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. We had a guy start a fight. We had all kinds of stuff go wrong. And we realized after the end of the season, we were like, man, we need to be more diligent about discipline and respect for authority and no penalties. And so we came out with this really, really strict regimen for the next season. And I'm talking about, it was militant. It was yes, sir, no, sir. Not a single thing could happen. If you were offsides one time, you were out of the game. Like, we didn't care. We were just all about discipline. We ended up going about 3 years without losing another game. We won 2 championships back to back. And we just valued just respect for authority, character, and we always had good players. Don't get it twisted. We always had Division I athletes or NFL-bound players. Shout out to all of them. But we always had these guys. And when I look at Charlotte, I see NFL players, NFL talent, at least last year, with zero discipline. And it manifested itself on the field 100 times over. You saw guys just fighting with teammates, fighting with coaches. It was gross. And the lack of discipline was absurd. I look at Charlotte, and I think it's one of the worst coach teams in America. Position coaches, coordinators, head coach, I don't care. Everything was terrible. And there's no other way I can't paint it any other way. So you see them here. They beat South Carolina State to open the season, an HBCU FCS level team. It was to be expected. They beat them 24-3. Then you go at Maryland, no chance. You play Georgia State. I told you guys before, Georgia State had a loaded senior-laden team. Darren Granger at quarterback, Marcus Carroll at running back. They had a loaded team and a really good receiver corps. So they're out there with all the weapons, put up 41 on them. Played very good against Florida. I predicted that. I actually thought that they would be stout against a terrible Florida offense, and they were. And by all accounts, they covered the spread, and we made a ton of money that week. Shout out to me for guessing that. Then they go at SMU, no chance, just get out-muscled. 2 weeks to prepare for Navy, and Navy's offense sucks, and they still lose 14-0. They could never score on Navy. Navy head coach is a defensive coordinator, and Navy's not going to let these guys score on you. Just not happening. Okay. East Carolina, they beat East Carolina. Last year, ECU's quarterback play was the worst in America. Some of the worst. Nevada's right up there, but it was bad, and ECU could not score, and they beat them 10-7. Congratulations. They lose to Florida Atlantic. They beat Tulsa in overtime. Tulsa was bad. Very bad. And then they go and lose in the game of the year against Memphis. They played their ass off. It was crazy. Memphis had a 20-point spread in that game, did not cover the spread, and barely won in overtime. That was nuts. Congratulations to them. Must have not saved any scoring from that day forward, because they go up to Rice, lose 28-7, and then get blown out by South Florida because Alex Golesh knows what he's doing with his squad. So they hit the offseason. And when you hit the offseason, you start losing players in the transfer portal, and they lost their very best players. We'll start with the position at quarterback. Trexler Ivy is back. He's the backup quarterback now. Jones is gone, and everybody else doesn't matter. But Trexler Ivy, you don't ever want to see him in the game. 4 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He is a turnover waiting to happen. He's the only quarterback they had that could throw the ball. Everything else was a running quarterback system. Shout out to Jalen Jones, also the team's leading rusher. That should tell you the acumen of the running backs. I will say this. Hassan Wilson, very good talent. Darrell Robinson, very good talent, just not used properly. And they had no offensive line that could really pop open the holes. Nobody rushing for over 500 yards. That's because you're punting all the time and having turnovers. That's because you can't stop the other team from running on you. When I watched film on Charlotte, I'm going to show you guys something. You see how they have all these guys with tackles? It's because the other team can just keep getting first downs and eventually score. You can't stop them. All right, receivers. Yes, there's some stats here. No receiver averaged more than 3 receptions a game. Not a single receiver got more than 3 receptions a game. It's probably the quarterback play. But even some of these receivers are gone. Like Jack Hester, he's at Utah State. He's gone. Jarris Mack's still here, but he's not in the starting lineup anymore, and he was the team's leading receiver. Not even a starter. None of these guys are significant. We're talking about 6 total touchdowns all season long out of the receiver room. It's bad. Absolutely terrible. And they're going to use some of these guys. Now, kicking, terrible kicker. 9 out of 15, he's back. Kyle Kunan, he can't kick at all. 60% in field goals. 60% in field goals, bro. It's a coin flip. You might as well just go for it. What are we doing kicking? He can't make 30 to 39 yarders. Forget that he missed the 50-yarder and he missed, 2 in the 40s. He can't make anything beyond 30 yards. He can't make anything beyond 30 yards. Team's leading tackler, Demetrius Knight, very good linebacker. He's now in South Carolina. Nikhil Hill-Green, very good linebacker. He's now at Colorado. Iyabi Okianoma, cancer. He's now in the UFL. Dante Belfort, he's back. Brima, back. Okay? And there's some other guys that departed and left. Who else left? Fagan's over at West Virginia now. And nobody else of consequence. But when your best leaders, your team leaders, your leading tacklers, your star linebackers, both depart, and what do you backfill it with? What do you backfill it with? Let's go look at this. We look at the transfer portal. Trevon Booker coming over, a corner. Coming over from Campbell, but before Campbell, he was in the MAC, Miami of Ohio, I believe. He wasn't on the field for Miami of Ohio. Couldn't play. But he's back. He's back at Charlotte. Congratulations, back at the FBS level. That kind of move doesn't move me. Adam Hopkins, good player. Like him a lot. Coming over from Colorado. He says he wants to move back to wide receiver. He can play either way. Yeah, I like the kid. Derek Shepard, been around for a while. Huge body. 2 years at Cincinnati. Doesn't really do much. I think he was a former 4-star, but he's just a big guy. It says 3 stars, but I remember him being a 4-star. Big guy. Was at Virginia Tech for 1 year, Antonio Cotman was, and couldn't see the field. Didn't see the field at all. William Hawkins at Miami. Tall kid, a lot of potential. Never saw the field at Miami. Omega Blake. How do I explain Omega Blake to you guys? He was at South Carolina, transferred to ECU and in the winter. After spring football, he was with the twos all season long, all spring long. Listen to what I'm saying. Omega Blake was with the twos at ECU, so he jumped back in the portal. He's now slated to be a starter for Charlotte. That's how bad the wide receiver room is. The backup at ECU is the starter here. That's nuts. Chance Williams, I think he can play football. I think Chance Williams can play. He's actually backing up one of the defensive end spots. They have a really good front seven, like pretty stout. Good size, I should say. Not very good players, just good size. Johnny Assard, starting left tackle, I believe, left tackle for UMass last year. It says interior offensive lineman, but I think he's a starting left tackle for UMass last year. So you got the starter from UMass. You got the starter on the worst team in America, right? Essentially. CJ Stokes, backup running back, coming back home from Michigan. Yep, he's from Michigan. Okay. Derek Edwards, corner. I've never really seen Derek Edwards play, and I want to say he wasn't always at Louisville. Maybe he was. I just haven't seen him play much. Tyler Gibson, recruiting miss, former 4-star kid, was at Georgia Tech. It's only been 2 years. Maybe he can be good. Maybe he's got potential. The offense line there. CJ Clinkscales is from Buford. I watched him in high school. He's 5'7", bro. He's a 5'7" nickel corner, and he's about to be a starter. They have him starting over Sammy Anderson. I actually like Sammy Anderson. Sammy Anderson was a starter at Cincinnati, got injured, and he didn't play anymore. Rumph, he's played a little bit. He's played here and there. These are not bad players. Xavier Simmons. I'm drawing a blank. Doesn't move me like that. These are backup linebackers, by the way. These are not guys that are going to be doing any. Stony Brook. We're coming from Stony Brook. I don't even recognize the emblem. Fairmont State Falcons. App State. Cartorius Norton. He's going to be the starting running back now. He wasn't any good at Iowa State. I'm just keeping it real. 3-star guy who never really popped on tape for me. He looks the part, sure. He looked kind of yoked, but lost his job to Sama in the snow, and then he just bounced. He was part of 3 running backs at Iowa State last year. Herman, big kid. I think he's just completely experimental. It says coming over from Florida, never got on the field at Florida, just completely experimental because he's 6'8", 370. DeAndre Martin, congratulations, he's here. McGee, you couldn't get on the field at Iowa State, but I've made it very clear, no shade at him, Iowa State safeties are very good. So he has the potential to be one of those players that's actually pretty good. He just couldn't get on the field at Iowa State because they have a really good secondary. I've already told you guys, if you didn't see the other videos, Iowa State's probably in my top 15 secondaries as a complete unit. They have great safeties. Shout out to all of them. Maurice Clipper here, coming over from Tennessee. I don't think he's a starter. Mitchell Mays is a starter. Jordan Moko is a starter. Now, these are great upgrades for them. Mitchell Mays used to start at Clemson. He did. I think injuries set him off, but he used to start at Clemson. And then Jordan Moko used to start at Texas A&M before injuries. So those are 2 really good offensive linemen for them. Max Brown coming in. They say he's a gem. He's the guy. He's different. He's a type of player they never get over there at Charlotte. Coming in from Florida. I'm going to tell you, if that's your guy, if that's the guy, then that's the guy. If that's who we believe is changing lives out here, this is what we're banking the whole program on. Max Brown, more power to you. Justin Olsen coming over from North Carolina. He went to Middle Tennessee State last year, but he was from North Carolina. That's why he's wearing that baby blue. He was North Carolina before that. And then I don't know much about Gary Grant. Okay. That's what they added. Like I said, what they lost. Oh, they lost their starting offensive tackle? Yeah, Tank Green. He goes by Tank. He's now the starting tackle at UConn. They lost Cameron Howard, just a young safety. He went to Alabama. Fagan goes to West Virginia. Nikai Hill-Green will be starting at Colorado. Miguel Jackson didn't really pop on tape for me. Darrell Robinson's a good running back going up to UConn. Demetrius Knight's a stud, an absolute stud. Most of these other guys are of no consequence. Yeah, okay. So how do I feel about this team? Well, let's talk about it. First and foremost, I don't like the way they match up with JMU. I think JMU, you guys know I'm doing these ratings. You guys know I'm doing these evaluations on offense. So let me just show you Charlotte here. They're a 40 on offense. They rank a 40 when I evaluate their position groups. And that's quarterback, running back, wide receiver room, tight end, and offensive line of 40. If you're in the group of 5, a 6 in any one of these means you're pretty damn good. You're probably one of the best I've ever seen at the group of 5 level. 6s mean you're really good, and they're a 40, okay? Defensively, they have good corner. He's one of the best all conference, and they're a 55 on defense. So a 40 on offense, 55 on defense. That's Charlotte. They're playing JMU week 1, and I'm telling you, James Madison is a 57 on offense. And they have a 6 and they have a 7. I just told you 6 means you're one of the best I've ever seen in the group of 5. The running back room at JMU is elite. They just got Joby from Portland State as well. I've talked about him on TikTok before. He's great as well. But they have Ayo Adehi. That's a 7-yard carry back from North Texas. They have a loaded room. Their quarterback's better. He's a transfer from Washington. Complete stud. Used to start over there. Wide receiver room needs a lot of help. Tight end doesn't move me. Offensive line at JMU is absolutely dominant. The offensive line at JMU is better than the offensive line at Kansas. Okay? I'm telling you, I don't see the way Charlotte stops this offense. I don't see it. And I haven't even evaluated their defense yet, JMU's defense, but I know their linebackers are great. See that 7 right there? That's linebackers. So JMU's linebackers are great. I don't know what Charlotte's supposed to do to win that game. I don't like the way they match up. All right. I don't like the way they match up with North Carolina. Obviously, North Carolina is going to beat them by 50 or 40. So we're looking at 2 losses to start the season for Charlotte. They're supposed to beat Gardner-Webb. Gardner-Webb just lost their head coach. He went over to ETSU, East Tennessee State, took 20 players with him. So Gardner-Webb's going to have their work cut out. Gardner-Webb will not be competitive in that game, I don't think. I think Charlotte goes out there and beats the brakes off of them. Then they go on the road to Indiana. They don't match up well with Indiana. Indiana should beat them by 30. Then they go on the road at Rice. If you paid attention, Rice with JT Daniels beat them 28-7 last year. They still have the same starting running back. Okay? If you ever wanted to know how they did in that game, if I go to schedule and you go back to the Rice game back in 2023, let's see what they struggled with. And, well, they struggled with offensive production. But more importantly, what couldn't they stop at Rice? And if I go pull it up, Rice showed up without a quarterback. They showed up with A.J. Padgett. This year, they're going to have Kurt Warner's son, E.J. Warner, as the quarterback, okay? But they can't stop Dean Connors. Dean Connors is a star running back, a stud, and he's got more running backs. Dean Connors went for 184 on these guys. And that's with the good linebackers. That's with the good linebackers who just left for Colorado and South Carolina. They don't have those guys anymore. They don't have those studs. They don't have Okianoma. So you couldn't stop Dean Connors, and he went for 184. Dean Connors is back. Bigger, stronger, faster. And this is why when I look at the offensive rankings, right here, man, what's wrong with me? I just pulled up the wrong chart. Give me a second here. Transfers, boom. This is why when I pull up these rankings and I go to Rice offense, this is why you'll see Rice having 6s. And I already told you the 6s mean you have a great player in that position group or you're one of the best in the group of 5. 6s for Rice at running back, at quarterback, at tight end, and they got a 5. Rice is not going to have a problem. You can't stop this guy. So they're having nightmares of Dean Connors right now. And you're supposed to go out there and do something about it. I don't see it. Okay, and they hired a new defensive coordinator. It's his first time being a defensive coordinator in college. He's from the NFL, and I don't like NFL coordinators. They don't translate well, not at the college game, because they're too complicated, and these players can't figure it out. So I see them losing to Rice, especially on the road. They're losing to Rice. I see them losing all these games, dude. Now it's East Carolina, and everybody assumes they're going to beat East Carolina, or at least they should be competitive in this game. Rightfully so. I think East Carolina's addressed their shortcomings. Their wide receiver room's better. We already know it is because the starters at Charlotte couldn't start at East Carolina in the spring, right? Blake is slated to be a starter right here. If we look at their starting wide receivers are Omega Blake, who was a backup at East Carolina 2 months ago. So we know that, but remember, your wide receivers are going against DBs, not wide receiver versus wide receiver. I'm just saying, talent-wise, I think East Carolina might have addressed their shortcomings. They brought in 2 quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Both are very good in comparison to what they had last year. I think East Carolina also has the big advantage in coaching. East Carolina has good coaching staff. They do. So I don't like the way they match up in that game. I think it'll be at home. That's cool. It's a home game for everybody, bro. East Carolina, Charlotte, it's all the same. Everybody's going to travel well. At Navy. Good luck beating Navy at Navy, bro. Good luck going to Annapolis and beating Navy. I believe in discipline, another stout defense. You couldn't score a point on them, and now you're going to show up and try to beat them? I don't know, man. I don't know. And I don't know what Navy returns. Offensively, it looks meek. It looks terrible. But Navy, these service academies, man. The day these service academies are winning 3 games is crazy. So, I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong chart. Man, I'm having it. It's pretty late. But I'm looking at Navy right here. Look at what I gave Navy. 1s all across the board. They have returned no production that I know of. I don't know the players that well. Couldn't find film on them. They're all in prep school. I know nothing about Navy's offense. Here's what I do know. Navy's got an offensive line that's pretty damn good. Okay, they're a 5, which is really good. Oh, and Navy's got a defense. 6, 4, and 5 in the linebackers, corners, and safeties. This is much better than you'd expect from something like Charlotte. I don't know how Charlotte moves the ball on these guys. And I haven't even done their defensive line yet. So for me, it just feels like they don't match up well with Navy. Obviously getting blown out at Memphis, losing to Tulane, losing to South Florida, all losses. I don't like the way they match up with these offenses down here either, and the coaching staff seem a lot better. UAB has a better coach. Florida Atlantic has a better coach. They really do. And UAB returns Zeno, Jacob Zeno, who actually takes care of the ball, airs it out, and moves, gets first downs. So for me, I look at Charlotte, and I'm just like, where are they supposed to win games? I see 1, maybe 2, and then after that, I'm like, where? If you got 3, congratulations, but you need to get to 4 to hit the over. You need to get to 4 to hit the over. This value bet feels so real, and it's a plus 116. It's a value bet. That's why I call it a value bet, because it's a plus number, right? So for the chart, I'll pull it up now so you guys understand how this works. I've got Charlotte here. I've got it on the under. I put 2 units. Remember, we're doing all plus values at 1 unit for value bets. This is the first value bet I've said, let me go 2 units. I just feel like Biff Poggi and his crew don't know what they're doing. In the entire offseason, I think they're piecing together nonsense, and I really don't like the way they match up with their schedule. Their schedule looks like a bunch of teams poised to be better than them. And if you think Trent Dilfer's losing to Charlotte, okay, more power to you. I think he's a better coach. I think he's better at X's and O's. I think he's better at preparing his team. I think he's got better talent. And that's just how I feel about it. So for me, I don't see Charlotte winning 4 games. It's 3.5. No way they get to 4. Not in my eyes. So I have Charlotte on the under, plus 116. It's a value bet. Keep it at 1 unit if you want. I'm putting it at 2. Do as you wish. Some MVPs are better than others. Please go spread out your bets, bro. Spread them out. Spread them out. Follow the greens and the purples. Spread them out and do your thing. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Good luck, y'all.